Hey guys, I'm so excited for the video today. It's a really important one because it's going to be the difference between you renting for decades and buying a place in only 3 short years. Talk to you soon. Hey guys, so before I do the how of renting so that you can buy, I'm going to touch on the why just for a little bit, explaining why you should be thinking about buying rather than leasing for the rest of your life. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that leasing for the rest of your life is not possible, and there are places in the world where leasing is the only option. But what we're looking at right here is what is the best alternative strategy so that, for example, when you retire and you no longer have an income, are your finances going to put you in a sustainable situation for the next 30, 40 years of your life, right? So we're not talking about living in Paris where maybe you do have to rent. We're talking about the GTA, we're talking about, the different stages of your life, having a family, all of that. Does it make sense to rent all the way through that? Now, we know that over time, mortgages go down as you pay them off. Your mortgage payments get less as you go throughout your life. And rent payments, they stay around the same or they go up. And actually, what rent payments are really reliant upon is supply. And as, especially in Ontario, as regulations become more and more strict and more in favor of the tenant, less people are investing in real estate, less supply for tenants, and I'm sure the RTA never intended this, but through more regulation, it actually creates rents going up because less landlords are investing in the market. So over time, your rent's going up, whether it's just that little 2% that your landlord can increase every year, or whether that's, you having to go back out into the market and rent another place. So all the time I get, Kirk, I'm renting this amazing place for $1,500. The market rent for it is $2,000. Why would I buy? Because they can't raise the rent except for maybe 2% per year. Well, what you're really sitting on is a ticking time bomb, because in the future, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's a year, whether it's 5 years, that landlord will sell that property and cash in. And at that point, when they sell, then you're going back out into the market to pay market rent. So you could even have your whole life structured around this $1,500 a month and have to go out into the market and pay $2,500, who knows what it could be. The amounts that we've been seeing rent prices jump in the recent years, it really is a big risk having that sitting there that at any point you could have to go and have much higher expenses. All right, so let's move on to the how. And of course, I will create another video going a little bit more into the why of leasing versus buying and all of the actual numbers, but that's a whole video in itself. Okay, so your step number 1 is getting professionals involved, and that would be a realtor to help you figure out what is the price of this first property that you're going to purchase. You need to know that price so that you can figure out how much to save for. In addition to that, you need a mortgage rep involved, so they can help you figure out what is your monthly payment, how much savings do you need. And so all of this together is achieving a savings goal. Once you have the savings goal, you can really work out how much per month you need to save so that you can buy a home in 3 or 4 years. As a general rule of thumb, even without doing those calculations, I recommend that people try and put $500 aside every month in savings. And when I say try, what I actually mean is automate your monthly savings so that it happens. Just planning on living your life normally and then saving money at the end of the month, that doesn't happen. And with the online banking tools that we have today, it's needless. you can go into your own online banking, you can walk into your bank if you don't use that, and you can set it up so that every month $500 from your checking account gets transported to your savings account, just like that. And then fast forward 3 years and you have the money to buy a house, right? And one of the great things about setting that up as well is that you'll get a feel of what the ongoing cost of this transfer is. So when your mortgage rep tells you this is what your mortgage payment is going to be, maybe it's $2,000 a month and you're paying $1,500 in rent, right? As you start saving $500 a month, for example, now you're really paying like $2,000 a month, even though you're paying yourself $500 a month out of that. So as time goes on, you're not going to be, when you get ready to buy a house, you're not going to be worried about whether you can make those mortgage payments, because you've already created a scenario in which you pretty much are making similar payments, right? This is one of the many benefits of planning ahead of time so that you don't have these problems in the future. So what's your next step? Okay, so point number 2 that really ties in to connecting with a mortgage rep is figuring out what does your income need to be so that you can buy a place. How much savings do you have to buy a place? What does your credit score have to be to buy a place? Maybe you're someone who's thought it was a good idea to only use your debit card for the last few years, and therefore your credit history is really limited. So for working on your mortgage rep can tell you the income, the savings part, but you need to build your credit up so that when it comes time to buy a place, the lender can see at least a year of credit history. So what does this mean? This means getting a credit card, getting the max limit that the credit card company will give you, and using that credit card. And what I recommend doing is, it's often a great thing to do, is just maybe some automatic payments that you make for different things. Put that on your credit card. And of course, everyone's worry is what happens when they don't pay their credit card. Well, what you can do is actually go into your online banking and set it up so that at the end of the month, and this is what I do, at the end of the month, your credit card gets automatically paid off from your checking account. And you don't have to think about it, it gets paid off, and then all this time, you're building up this credit without any risk of late payments because it's all been automated. So other things that affect your credit rating that you're gonna need is your, what they call credit utilization rate. So this is why I said you wanna take your max on your credit card. Because if you've got a $5,000 max and you've got $1,000 on that credit card, the lender goes, they're at 20%. But if you've got a $10,000 max and you've got $1,000 on your credit card, the lender goes, you're at 10%. So in each scenario, you've got $1,000. That's kind of the funny thing about how the credit bureau is kind of working with this information. So you always want to get the max. The other part of that is when your credit card, maybe if you've had a month of high spending, don't wait for the automation to pay it off. Just go into your online banking and pay it off before it gets above maybe $2,000. And through that, and also through making other payments on time, you're gonna get a great credit rating over the next couple of years. So a lot of people may think it's not a big deal paying my hydro bill a couple of days late. Wrong. You want to make all your payments on time because the lender can actually even see when they look at your credit rating how many late payments you've made, and they're going to factor that in. Another part of this is people will comment about, checking your credit is going to hurt your credit score. And this is kind of more of a myth, really, because there's two types of checks. There's a hard check that happens when you get a cell phone or a car. These aren't going to happen very often anyway, so you don't have to worry about them. Then there's the soft checks, which is when you check your own credit. That does not affect your credit score at all. So you shouldn't be afraid of checking your own credit to make sure that you're headed in the right direction so that in that 2-year period, you're going to be ready to buy a place. Okay, Okay, so point number 3 is, and I know this sounds silly, paying a reasonable rent. Because I help people lease properties and I help tenants find leases, I see all the time the decisions people are making. And sometimes I'm really left wondering, was this the right decision, them renting this place for $2,500 a month? Because how much is left for them to save so that they can eventually buy? So, I think a lot of us, myself included, in the millennial generation, we're used to these beautiful homes that we grow up in. And what we don't realize is our parents didn't start there. They built up to that over time through hard work and through sacrifice. And then we leave the house and we expect to have this beautiful renovated house that we move into. That's not the reality. And if you want to have a great future, now's the time to make sacrifices, right? When you're building up your income and before you have all these huge responsibilities in your life, financial ones, right? So getting, and this doesn't mean that you need to rent a crap hole, but really the cheapest apartment that you can find, that's really what you should be looking at. You should be looking at something that, if you're in the West GTA around, outwards of Mississauga, Oakville, Milton, Burlington, Hamilton, you really shouldn't be spending more than $1,600-1,700 a month. Even at that height of rent, it's not going to be super easy saving $500 a month, right? So keeping that rent down really is key. And that brings me to point number 4, which is considering bringing in a roommate. Now, if you're already a couple, obviously this probably isn't going to work, and boom, you already have 2 incomes, and you are kind of almost, you do have a roommate. But if you're single, this is really something you should consider, because if that's $800 a month that you're kind of saving by having a roommate, that's going to end up being around 10 grand a year. So for people who go, no, I don't want a roommate, is it worth $10,000 for you per year? So of 3 years of saving, is it worth $30,000 to you not having a roommate? Maybe you'll reconsider at that amount of money, right? And you might be saying to me, well, Kirk, what happens if this and this and this and this? In Ontario, the Residential Tenancies Act says that if you share a kitchen or if you share a bathroom, you are exempt from the Residential Tenancies Act. What does that mean? Well, it's the act that has all these regulations about not being able to kick people out of their residence, giving certain notices, right? So if you're exempt and this roommate is a nightmare roommate, you can just kick them out. That doesn't mean that you don't interview them. This doesn't mean that you don't check their credit rating and get references and make sure that you think they're going to be a good roommate. This doesn't mean that you don't have a roommate's agreement about, I go to bed at 8 p.m. every night. Okay, I stay up late. Well, this isn't going to work. On to the next one, right? It doesn't mean you don't do that vetting part of it, but you are protected because you can just kick them out if it's not working, and they should know that up front. If they know that up front as well, they're probably going to be better behaved. And then over time, this savings by having a roommate, 10 grand, I don't know if that's a lot of money to me, especially for a savings goal to buy a place. $30,000 over 3 years is going to make a huge difference getting to that goal. Thanks for watching, guys. And just to kind of reiterate quickly, I really want you to use these takeaways so that this video makes an impact on your life. Number 1, meet with professionals, get a plan. At the very least, you should be going into your online banking and setting up an automatic transfer from your checking to your savings of $500 a month. If you're living at home, you should be making that $1,000 a month. Number 2 is getting and using a credit card, okay? Number 3 is keeping your rent low. If you're living at home, that's amazing. Don't stop living at home until you buy a house. Number 4 is consider roommates. But again, if you're living at home, you pretty much do have roommates. So thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope it helps you. You can always reach out to me. In the meantime, please like and subscribe so that you're going to get more of these awesome videos. And of course, I'm going to be releasing a video that goes a little bit into more about the numbers involved in the lease versus purchase scenario, which will really make it obvious to you why in the long term, purchase is the only way to go.